Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, October 5th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight, President Trump is back at the White House after a 3-day hospital stay for the coronavirus. The president walked out of Walter Reed Military Hospital this afternoon wearing a mask and pumping his fist. He's expected to continue his recovery at the White House, where he'll get around-the-clock care from a team of doctors and nurses. As Mary Maloney reports, more of those closest to the president have tested positive for the virus.
President Trump says he's feeling really good and tweeted this message: "Don't be afraid of COVID."
I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school.
The president spent Monday morning active on social media, tweeting a flurry of messages, many ending with the same word: vote. It's a sign the president is focused on the election as doctors and top aides focus on his health.
Though he may not entirely be out of the woods yet, the team and I agree that all our evaluations, and most importantly, his clinical status, support the president's safe return home.
Since testing positive last week, doctors say the president had a fever and his oxygen levels dropped twice.
He received dexamethasone, which is reserved only for people with severe COVID. So that alone raises concerns about his condition. Even
as the president is eager to leave the hospital, more members of his inner circle continue to test positive for the virus, including White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, who tweeted, "After testing negative consistently, including every day since Thursday, I tested positive for COVID-19 on Monday morning while experiencing no symptoms." The First Lady, also recovering from coronavirus, tweeted, "I'm feeling good and will continue to rest at home." This as the COVID pandemic shows no signs of slowing.
I'm actually disturbed and concerned about the fact that our baseline of infections is still stuck at around 40,000 per day. That's no place to be when you're trying to get your arms around an epidemic.
Mary Maloney, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom says California's coronavirus case rate has been stable, but warned that 21 other states are seeing upticks in transmissions. Today, San Diego County announced 224 new cases. No additional deaths were reported today, although 9 were reported over the weekend. During his press conference, the governor said the state hopes to update the tier system by the end of the year. He says more counties are making progress in moving to less restrictive tiers.
I know some counties want to see it move more quickly, and we do as well. But that's determined not by whims. It's determined by data. It's determined by information that's garnered on the basis of case rates and positivity rates in the framework we put out now a number of months ago. And again, we're making progress, but we're doing it in a slow, steady, and methodical way as we move tier to tier.
San Diego County is currently in the red Tier 2. We will get an update on our case rate from the state tomorrow. Chula Vista Elementary School District plans to start reopening later this month, but KPBS education reporter Joe Hong says the teachers union has concerns about the number of COVID-19 cases that have already popped up at child care centers on campuses.
The Chula Vista Elementary School District's child care centers each serve about 20 students. The district and the YMCA opened them on campuses at the start of the school year primarily to help working parents. But since early September, there have been 5 COVID-19 cases at the child care centers. Rosie Martinez is a teacher at Hilltop Drive Elementary School in West Chula Vista and the vice president of the teachers union. Her students are learning from home, but she teaches from her classroom. She said she regularly sees some of the staff and students at the childcare centers not wearing masks or social distancing.
I've seen them on grassy areas participating in physical education activities where students are expected to stand next to each other to participate in the activity. So I think mostly the fact that there isn't an expectation of physical distancing between the students, that's a concern.
Considering the number of positive cases and the failure to follow protocol, Martinez is concerned the district isn't ready to welcome more students back to campuses on October 26th.
If it's such a small group of students and we can't maintain physical distance in such a large space like being outside, then my concern is if we have much larger groups of students, how are we going to expect for these things to be followed?
The district spokesman declined to be interviewed, but said in an emailed statement that employees at the childcare centers were required to watch a safety video that outlined physical distancing policies. Also, the district's reopening plan for October mandates face masks and plexiglass between students and classes. Finally, voluntary COVID-19 tests will be available at several campuses. But teachers' union leaders aren't reassured by the reopening plan. They urge district officials not to rush, especially in light of the cases at the childcare centers. They're calling for better ventilation systems and a nurse on every campus.
If the goal is to open on October 26th, we've got to have these things in place sooner than later.
Susan Scala is the president of the teachers union. She also points out that the district serves communities with some of the highest COVID rates in the county.
We would think that the district would want to have higher safety standards, especially given the communities that we serve and the zip codes that we have.
The district's initial reopening on October 26th will be limited to students from preschool to second grade. Students with disabilities will also be able to return for in-person learning. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
A new free COVID-19 testing site is open at the South Chula Vista Library. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says the Chula Vista location brings needed testing to South County.
The new COVID-19 testing site opened yesterday. The drive-up site will be open Sundays through Thursdays, 12:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. The new testing facility is part of an effort to expand testing options and address the continuing high number of cases in South County.
Increased testing in Chula Vista and surrounding communities is important because the coronavirus cases rates continue to be higher in the South County zip codes.
Chula Vista has been particularly hard hit by COVID-19, and so has the city's majority Hispanic community.
Latinos make up about 34% of our county, yet 66% thereabout of our cases, positive cases of Latinos. That is disproportionate. That is very alarming.
Chula Vista is using CARES funding to staff the site with EMTs and city staff who will work together to coordinate the diagnostic testing. The drive-through testing process takes approximately 5 to 10 minutes and is completed from inside your car.
We're optimistic that this is one step forward, but again, it has to be combined with not just having a site, but also doing the right amount of outreach and working with the local community partners that are the trusted messengers in the Latino community.
According to our KPBS COVID-19 tracker, the new library testing site falls within the 91911 zip code, where more than 2,400 cases have been recorded to date. That is the second highest case total for any zip code in San Diego County, only behind the 92154 zip code in Otay Mesa. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Doctors and nurses are concerned the flu could send even more patients to the hospital during the pandemic. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento says a local nonprofit is hoping far more people seek out one of its free flu shot clinics this year.
Champions for Health is expecting such high turnout, the group purchased a new portable cooler that can hold 400 shots for every event.
Versus, the usual 100 or 200 that we would take to any given event. So we're ready.
Executive Director Adama Dionysiak says she expects a high demand because people may want flu protection during the coronavirus pandemic and many may have lost their job.
Usually the flu vaccine costs an average of $40. And that could be a bag of groceries, right? That could be a tank of gas.
More than 30 clinics are scheduled through the rest of this year. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
The group vaccinated 499 people at its first event yesterday. Go to kpbs.org for a list of the mobile clinic times and locations. Landlords can now file for evictions across California. As KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler shows us, tenants rallied outside the housing court in downtown San Diego, saying a new state law meant to protect them doesn't go far enough.
If they kick me out of my house where I've been for almost 4 years, where am I going to go? Am I going to live in this van with my kids and be more vulnerable to COVID? You know, how are we supposed to do this?
Patricia Mendoza, a tenant who's part of the group ACE, has been fighting for the rights of tenants, including herself, for months now. She's one of the dozens of tenants and advocates who came out early Monday morning to voice their dissatisfaction with AB 3088. That compromise bill, passed right at the end of the legislative session, gave tenants until February to pay a portion of their rent, but it doesn't stop evictions unrelated to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mendoza says this gives landlords, like her own, the loopholes needed to move forward with evictions.
The lady wants to remodel the roof, so she thinks that with her, it needs to be remodeled right now during this pandemic, so she wants to kick everybody out.
The group drove downtown from Balboa Park as part of a car caravan, circling the downtown courthouse just as its doors opened. Barbara Pinto is a tenant in southeast San Diego. Now out of work and with her unemployment reduced, she sees no way she'll be able to pay the rent she still owes, even with the extra time.
Because of the pandemic, I've been unable to work. I am a senior citizen. I'm paying over 82% of my income for rent. I took a part-time job and that was affected, and our office was closed, so I haven't been able to make the extra money.
She thinks more needs to be done at the state and federal level to help renters meet their obligations under the new law, with an economy still in tatters. A federal eviction moratorium has placed a possible hold on evictions nationwide, but like California's own law, it still allows landlords to evict tenants for reasons unrelated to non-payment due to COVID-19. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
If you haven't already, check your mailbox. If you're registered to vote in San Diego County, you may have received your official ballot today. There are a few changes to the election this year you should know about. KPBS reporter Shalina Chatlani explains the ins and the outs of voting during a pandemic.
On November 3rd, Election Day, voters can come here, the County Registrar of Voters. Now, if you come in person and decide to cast your ballot here, you'll need to wear a face mask. But if you don't want to wear that, you still have another option: curbside voting. The County Registrar of Voters say voter registration is up 13% from 2016's general election, and officials expect turnout to be at around 80%. Of course, with coronavirus, it means election officials are asking voters to take special precautions, like wearing masks and social distancing when voting in person. But then there's also voting by mail, and ballots should start arriving by October 5th, says County Registrar of Voters Michael Vu.
Is that there will be fewer polling locations than there have been in the past. Normally, we would conduct this upcoming election with approximately 1,600 neighborhood polling places. But because of the pandemic, we are now consolidating those into 235 super polls locations.
Vu says this year ballots can be received up to 17 days after November 3rd, as long as it's postmarked by Election Day.
We've doubled the total number of drop-off locations than we did in March, and the total amount of time that there will be open is 4 times as long compared to March.
Vu says voters can begin returning their ballots earlier this year, and voters can go to in-person polling locations beginning October 31st.
We are only going to be as good as voters once they receive their ballot to vote it and get it back to us for us to be able to process it all the way through. That is, verify it, opening it, extracting the ballot out.
Vu says there's already 1.9 million registered voters in San Diego, and they can cast their ballots as soon as they get them. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
In-person early voting started today at the Registrar of Voters office in Kearny Mesa. It's open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays. And starting tomorrow, you can drop off your ballot at one of the 126 drop-off locations around the county, including libraries, YMCAs, county offices, and the Old Globe Theater in Balboa Park. Now, among the most consequential races in the city of San Diego this election season is the race for mayor. Both candidates, Assemblymember Todd Gloria and City Council member Barbara Bree, are Democrats. But KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says their priorities are quite different.
What? I made an omelet.
It's just past 10 a.m. and Todd Gloria is volunteering at a North Park cafe, preparing meals for seniors. He's still working on his omelet flipping technique.
Did you see that? Anybody? Did you catch that? That's my second one. That was better than the first one.
The program is called Great Plates Delivered. The state of California pays restaurants to prepare and deliver meals to older adults who are stuck at home because of COVID-19. Gloria strikes up a conversation with the chef, who says he's working 3 jobs to keep his family afloat. Gloria later tells me he can sympathize.
I grew up in a working class family. I rode the bus as a young man. I understand what a lot of folks must do to get by.
Before he was elected to the state assembly, Gloria served on the San Diego City Council for 8 years, including 6 months as interim mayor. As the COVID-19 pandemic takes its toll on the city budget, Gloria says this is an area where he has relevant experience.
I served as the city's budget chair for 6 of the 8 years that I was at City Hall. We were able to take the city from massive budget deficits resulting from the Great Recession, turn them into surpluses and reserves that thankfully will help mitigate some of the cuts that will be necessary going forward. I would point out that the city was running a deficit prior to the pandemic, a really reflection of, I think, the poor fiscal stewardship over the last 4 years by this mayor and by my opponent, who is the chair of the Budget Committee.
Great. Well, I'm honored to have your vote, and thank you very much for coming to get a yard sign.
Gloria's opponent is City Council member Barbara Bree. We meet her at the home of a supporter as she's handing out yard signs and talking with a group of her backers.
You have a cat, too.
We have 2 cats, 4 dogs.
Wow!
Bree was elected to the council in 2016. Before politics, she had a successful business career, co-founding an e-commerce company and incubating other tech startups. She says she's proud of helping sink the Soccer City ballot measure in 2018, demanding an independent audit of the city's overbilling of water customers and asking tough questions about the city's bad record on real estate deals.
So I'm running for mayor, first of all, to bring accountability and transparency to City Hall, to lead an inclusive economic recovery as we come out of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has exemplified our existing inequities. And it's why I believe my private sector experience is so important in creating jobs, in terms of how we're going to have an economy that's going to get everybody back to work.
Bree's platform includes banning dockless scooter sharing companies and short-term home rentals. She says she supports increasing density near public transit stops as a way to alleviate the city's housing crisis, but opposes allowing duplexes in neighborhoods otherwise restricted to low-density housing. Bree still hasn't decided how she'll vote this election on Measure A, which would allow the city to issue bonds to fund affordable housing. She says the measure's increase to property taxes gives her pause.
Andrew, when we raise property taxes, somebody pays. I mean, homeowners pay, renters pay, it's all passed on. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. What I might have done 6 months ago, different than why I'm still thinking today, because we still have many San Diegans out of work, and this could be a very challenging time to raise taxes.
Gloria supports Measure A and says when San Diego is tasked with tackling big problems like homelessness, later too often becomes never.
You know, even in this pandemic, even in this recession, even with people marching in the streets, the most common thing that is shared with me as a concern by San Diegans is homelessness. They see thousands of our neighbors sleeping outdoors, unsheltered, and they want something done about it. And this is a way we can do something about it.
San Diego's next mayor will face more than just a massive budget deficit at the city. Unemployment is still higher than its peak during the Great Recession. Thousands of families could face eviction, making the homelessness crisis even worse. Who occupies the most powerful position in city government matters now more than ever. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
To learn more about the propositions, the measures, and the candidates on your ballot, check out our KPBS voter guide at kpbs.org/election. You can research your ballot specific to your address and find out where and how you can vote. You'll also find our most recent election stories. Some staggering new numbers from CAL FIRE. As of today, the August complex surpassed 1 million acres. It comes just after the total area of land burned by California wildfires this year alone passed 4 million acres. That's more than double the previous record. More than 16,000 firefighters are battling 23 major fires. At least 31 people have been killed, more than 8,000 buildings burned, and about 100,000 people forced to evacuate. The flames have been fueled by strong winds and high temperatures.
Our warm weather slowly fades away this week, so as we take a look at our headlines, a cooling trend's coming, and by Thursday, our temperatures will be near average. The marine layer will become deeper and more extensive, so that means more in the way of night and morning clouds. And look at this, perhaps a little light rain Saturday night as a strong system heads towards the coast. And that will bring in some cooler air too. For tonight, 53 in Oceanside, San Diego 65, and we'll see a low of 69, Borrego Springs, and Campo's down to 50. El Cajon's down to 63. For tomorrow, very weak system approaching the coast, and that will spread some cooling mainly to our north. We're still unseasonably warm here and quite hot in the deserts. Borrego Springs 104, Ramona 94, and El Cajon 97. Here in Oceanside, about 83. San Diego's coming in at 84. So temperatures still running above average, and we'll keep it warm on Wednesday, but along the coast, that cooling will start to make inroads. And by the end of the week, Thursday and Friday, that cooler air will start to advance inland. And by the weekend, even the desert's turning cooler. And here comes our rain threat that'll slide down the coast perhaps later Saturday night. So we'll see. Take a look at the temperatures. You can see we're back to average around Thursday and Friday. And as we head into the interior, well, temperatures settling down some here, getting closer to the averages, a little bit below average Thursday and Friday. And then as we take you into the mountains, temperatures warm, then they'll start to drop off. Ooh, 50s on Saturday. And look at the deserts. Even here, temperatures will be dropping below average over the weekend. So changes are coming. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Governor Gavin Newsom has nominated the first openly gay black man to the state Supreme Court. Martin Jenkins is a former federal civil rights attorney who has also served as a judge on the state and federal levels.
I want these young people to know that living a life of authenticity is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And if you do that, you too will find yourself in a position where people see you. They really see you and who you are, your authentic self. And the extraordinary opportunity I'm being offered today, I thank you, Governor Newsom, for seeing me.
The nomination has to be approved by the state's Commission on Judicial Appointments. Jenkins could start his new role in the court as early as next month. The U.S. Supreme Court began its new term today with just 8 justices on the bench after Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death last month. Chief Justice John Roberts opened by praising Ginsburg.
Justice Ginsburg's contributions as advocate, jurist, and citizen are immeasurable. We at the court will remember her as a dear friend and a treasured colleague.
The justices are still working remotely because of coronavirus, with arguments live streamed. They're expected to hear cases on the Affordable Care Act and religious liberty. As for Ginsburg's replacement, Senate Republicans are moving quickly to confirm President Trump's nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. There could be a confirmation vote by the end of the month. Regal Cinemas could close all its theaters in the United States as early as this week because of continued revenue losses from the pandemic. Regal is the second largest theater chain in the country after AMC. The chain has 8 locations in San Diego County. Indoor movie theaters are open at reduced capacity in the county and with other protocols in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, still contagious. President Trump is heading home to the White House, where hundreds of people work every day. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
KPBS General Manager Tom Carlo is retiring at the end of the year. Carlo began working at KPBS 47 years ago as a student assistant, and he rose through the ranks. KPBS reporting was found primarily on the radio dial when Carlo became GM about 12 years ago. He says KPBS needed to adapt.
There was a growing population that was beginning to use digital technology to consume content. And I wanted our news to be where people were consuming their media.
KPBS News is now found on more than 30 different platforms, including radio, television, and a host of digital streams. KPBS Associate General Manager Nancy Worley will take the top position on an interim basis.
I'm thrilled and I'm honored to be the first woman and to represent the women at our organization out in the community, and help take KPBS into the next couple years.
Worley takes over the helm on January 1st. She says the station plans to continue to burnish its commitment to journalism as the organization moves forward. And here is a recap of our top story. President Trump is back at the White House after spending 3 days at Walter Reed Military Hospital. He arrived home wearing his mask, but then he took it off and put it in his pocket. The president is expected to continue his recovery at the White House, where he'll get around-the-clock care from a team of doctors and nurses. He tweeted that he would be back on the campaign trail soon, even as more members of his inner circle continue to test positive. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.